And okay.
Yeah, I think it was just having to connect with that. So I think that's what was the problem.
Again, so sorry about that, our friends. We are going to keep on going. I believe I have had a chance to introduce Julie Miller, Executive Director at ADERA. Julie, would you mind to please introduce yourself so that our viewer can really know who you are and what you stand for, your passion, everything we really want to know about you today.
Okay. I am 62-year-old mother of 6, grandmother of 8. I have been married to my husband this May 42 years. I love connecting people, and I do that because of my personal mission statement is to love God and to love people. And so if I can do that in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, that's awesome. If I can do it in Fort Worth, Texas, that's awesome. It's a joy to do that. I went back to school in my 50s after raising my 6 kids and got my undergraduate and then my graduate degree from University of Texas, North Texas in Dallas. And so one is in human services and then the other is in public leadership. So it is my joy to share the story of ADERA and how I got involved with that. And it's been, I call it my volume 2. My volume 1 was taking care of my family and meeting those needs. And now I get to do it on another continent.
Thank you so much, Julie. Wow. Going back at school to school at 50. I think that can even be another theme that we could discuss about in the future. Again, like I've said all the time, this platform called Leadership for Women by Women is a platform for all women from all backgrounds, from all walk of life. Whether you are a professional, a stay-at-home mom, a student, or a business woman, it's a platform for all of us to come together, to empower each other, to train each other, to mentor each other, and to share resources and connection, just like you love to do it, Julie. And I believe for women to hear, even for men that are following us, by the way, to hear that this is somebody, a great woman, who took time to raise first her children, her family properly, and then decided to go back to school at 50. I'm very impressed, Julie. Congratulations.
Well, I just get things a little bit backwards. It's awesome. I mean, I like it.
Well, that's also about being a leader, getting your priority right. And this is all what this is about in another way. So let's quickly get into ADERA Foundation. Why ADERA Foundation?
ADERA Foundation was begun by a couple in Fort Worth, Texas. It was a response to many people from Texas and all over the United States were adopting children from Ethiopia, and they wanted to give back. They wanted to empower the villages or the small towns or the big cities where their children had been born. And so they asked, could we build a library? Could we build a kindergarten? Could we build a health center? And so Joe and Karen Robertson began that in 2009. But in 2012, they realized they really needed, for a long-term sustainability, they needed to go more into development rather than just projects. Little did they know that adoptions were going to totally close down. So that aspect and that catalyst was going to really close. And so in 2012, they invited me to help with this development. It really began when I visited Addis Ababa in 2012. It was May 2012. And I saw for the first time this landfill in Addis Ababa. It is 89 football fields. It is 5 to 6 stories tall. And 120,000 people live on it and around it and forage it for their daily sustenance. And I really didn't feel like I would know the true story unless I experienced what they were experiencing daily. So that day in May, I climbed that landfill. Now, you would have naturally put your hand down because the grade was so steep, but I knew what was underneath me, so I didn't. So I would take my guide's hand in front of me, and we would traverse up this landfill. And about 2/3 of the way up, I have to step aside because there is a woman, an Ethiopian woman, coming down. And she has on top of her head this large rice bag, and she has collected her goods for the day. And as she passed me, she was beautiful. Ethiopian women are just beautiful. And she smiled at me. And I saw on her back a 2-month-old baby. And I said to myself, what chance does that woman have? And what chance does that baby have unless someone is willing to step in and get into her mess? Because what she'll do is she'll take that rice bag down to the base of that mountain of garbage, and she'll use an instrument sort of like a sickle, and she'll divide the plastics on one side, and she'll divide the metals on one side, and she will sell those, and then she'll take the food home for her family. And I said, what possibility does she have? And really what I saw was my own daughters. I saw my Maggie, I saw my Kate, I saw my Molly, I saw my Mandy. And I thought, what would I want if those were my daughters? So ADERA opened up a daycare. And I am very hesitant about saying a daycare because we have in our mind a nice, clean, sanitary place where moms come in and they're in their business suits and they drop their children off and they are going to be taken care of while mom gets in her car and she drives to her work. And that's not what ADERA's daycare is about. ADERA's daycare is a place of refuge. It's a place of refuge for children. And it's a place of refuge and restoration for their moms. Because when they walk through that gate the very first time, the baby's crying because she or he have never been left by their mom. Mm-hmm. And the mother is downcast, eyes are down, full of shame. And that's where the restoration begins. And so the children are allowed, we have 110 children in the daycare. That's our number. And they get 2 meals a day. If they're new, we usually give them a 3rd meal of protein because they're so malnourished. And they get to play, they get baths, they get clean clothes, they get 2 meals a day, they get vitamins, they get medical care. And the moms are now, quote, what they say, independent to work. No longer do they have to have a baby strapped to their back to go to work and to clean. So it gives them freedom to begin the process of looking for work. ADERA helps with that. We have what we call an open door program, which is a training. It's about 3 months, 3 times a week. And the moms come and learn what it means to look someone in the eye, what it means to work with excellence, what it means to clean themselves and be appropriate with their hair and with their clothing so that they can be employed, what it means to have financial literacy. Literacy is really important, but financial literacy is where a woman can be robbed of everything that she has worked so hard for. And so we work on those core values. And then they can either take the employee route or they can take the entrepreneurship route, meaning we want them to be the best employee they can be or begin the process of starting their own businesses. Many think they want to be entrepreneurs until they find out the risk in it. And then they move quickly over to the employee route. And so ADERA looks for businesses that will hire our moms. And we even will pay for their first 2 months of salaries for the employer to train them and prepare them. And then it gives them 2 months to test out whether or not the woman is going to be a good employee. We also act as their advocate because we know that they can be taken advantage of. And so they need a voice so that they won't be taken advantage of. And so they begin that process. And ADERA has begun several businesses there. Some have worked better than others. We presently have a mill where we have 20 women working to mill all kinds of grains. And then we also have a bead house where our moms roll and make beads, and we bring them back to the United States, and we also sell them in Ethiopia. And it helps us tell the story of the moms because we use upcycled paper. We use TCU football programs or A&M football programs or OSU football programs or University of Tennessee football programs. And we take that paper and they make them into beads, and then we bring them all the way back and we sell them in those organizations. And I said, you know, it's a picture of what we would desire for our moms. That's something that they felt like were totally inadequate and worth nothing, that we want them to know that we are upcycling them and that they have value and they have dignity and they have a voice. So that is a portion of what ADERA does.
Thank you so much, Julie. You know, when you were talking, I could tell that the first time was like a turning point for you to realize that, wow, we live in we as American, we take everything for granted. We think like everything is due to us. And while you were talking, it really took me back to almost 20, 30 years ago when the same thing happened to me. Not even in Ethiopia, but in my own native country of Mali, where for years after we moved back in my country, because we live in different countries, I grew up in different places, but at 18, we moved back into Mali. And we were really living in a, I would say like a cocoon or preserve, life where we went to private school. Everything was well until my parents separated. And when they separated, things have changed. Things changed right away and life changed for us. And my mom, myself, and my brothers and sister, we find ourselves moving from a residential area to a very poor area of the city, literally like within 10 minutes drive. But that was the only nice house, decent house that we were able to find, because when this unfortunate event happened with my parents, it was during the rainy season, and it was very hard for us to find a house quickly in such a short notice. So I remember us moving into that very poor neighborhood. The house that we found was very pretty, but it was in a poor neighborhood. And I recall while you were talking that every morning I would dress up in suit. I didn't have a car at that time because I was taking care of my mom and my sister and brothers. So I didn't have a car. Here I am every morning at 6:30, 7 a.m., dressed up, and then getting out of the house, walking from the house to the main street to catch the public transportation. And that short distance was maybe like 6 minutes walk, but I was literally jumping over poops. And it opened my eyes. I could have seen that, experience as shameful, like, oh, wow, we used to live in a nice neighborhood and now we are in the ghetto, because literally that's what it was. But God opened my eyes. We stayed in that neighborhood for just 1 year, and we were able to find another house at a nicer place. But that 1 year was an eye-opening for me to see that life doesn't evolve around us. Life doesn't evolve around us and our just comfortable life. And I remember within a week, I identified this little girl every morning when I'm on my way to work. And she would just give me a smile. She was half naked. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You've seen that in Ethiopia. She just had a little underwear, but very dirty, bare feet, no outfit. And she would give me this beautiful smile. And my eyes will just look at her eyes, and I'm like, this girl is so pretty and so bright. I could see that she was very smart. But then I was like, why is she not going to school? Then within a week, I started conversing with her and asking her, sweetie, why are you not going to school? My mom and dad cannot afford it. So though we stayed for just a year in that neighborhood, I believe God brought me there for a reason, because I was touched and I spoke with her parent and I decided to pay for her school. Even when we moved out of her neighborhood, we moved to almost like 2 hours distance from where she lived. She and her dad will come at least once a month to visit me.
Mm.
So while you are talking, it just took me back to that. And I believe, as American and even European, we all need that kind of experience.
Yeah. To
see that, there is more beyond our border, our house, even, our city. And it brings the humanity back into us. And this is where I'm going now into my next question. We all know and we've all experienced what has happened to the world since 2020 with coronavirus. How millions of people have died. Others have lost their job. Many have become homeless. Many have become suicidal. Many homes have been wrecked with violence inside the house, from a domestic conjugal partner or even parent against the children. And many organizations have also been affected by the consequence of coronavirus. Before our webinar, I went in to do some research, and this is what I found. With the coronavirus, many nonprofit executive directors like you have reported that the most challenge have been, number one, prioritizing self-care. Number two, financial stability, meaning that many of the nonprofit like ADERA, like yours, are in need of secure financial resources to meet payroll and continue business operation. They are also in need of additional skills and training, because we all know since 2020, we've all been forced now to work remotely. And there is need for training for that. Here we are today. We try to do this live webinar on Facebook and we bump into a technical problem. Others have also reported that they need more support from the board and the funder, that they would like the board to be willing to see all that they are doing and accomplishing despite all the challenges that they are facing. Technically, they are talking about grace and kindness from funders. So I would like to know, this is like what most executive director or have been saying about how they've been facing challenges with coronavirus. What about ADERA? What have been the main challenges that your foundation have been facing since the beginning of coronavirus?
Okay, I was there in March and I flew out March 25th. Like I was on the wave of COVID, like the last flight going out of Addis Ababa and coming into DFW. And
2020 or 2021?
In 2020.
Okay.
Okay. And I really did not understand what was going on. I didn't understand the depth of what was going on. I know that our programs were shut down the week before I left, like the daycare was shut down, the feeding program was shut down, the school was shut down. And so all of our children had to go home. And I knew that was going to be complicated, because safe at home in a 10 by 10 corrugated metal shack with dirt floors, no latrines, no running water, and very frustrated parents can be a very violent place. And when the women can't go to clean clothes or clean houses or sell their vegetables on the street, there's no capacity for them to have any funds to buy the food that their family now desperately needs. Their children were getting fed at the daycare. Their children were being fed at the school. And now they were stuck at home. And I think that you can take what happened in America and just sort of magnify it 100-fold as far as the pressure and the tension and the insecurity that our families felt. And so the first thing that we implemented right off was curbside. And we weren't really confident how we were going to do that because the government was pretty strong about not having any groups coming together. So I said, we have all the time in the world, so let's break it up. And so literally we did. We had them coming every hour and then every day because we had the freedom to do that. And so our staff was overwhelmed that they would continue to get their salary. They were so willing to do anything and be of any help, because we told them, we have faith in what God is going to do to provide for you. And so your salaries will be continuing. And they were dumbfounded.
Wow.
And ADERA does have a commitment that we will always have 6 months in the bank. So we knew that we had funding in the bank, okay? And so we could move confidently in this emergency because we had a board that was committed to not having a short amount in the bank. So we are very, very conservative on how we spend. So when things like this happen, things are ready to go into place. So what we did was we made food packets, and they were 2-week food packets, and it was like rice and beans and macaroni and oils and things like that. And we made food packets, and literally they would come and pick up their food packet. And it was mothers from the daycare. It was mothers from Hibber. We feed 200 kids every day at Hibber, which is a local primary school, but we couldn't just feed the child without feeding their family. So we did food packets for them. So we did that where they came every 2 weeks and picked up their food packet. So that has been very, first of all, it allowed us to still have community. And I think one of the hardest things during COVID has been the loss of community.
Yeah.
And so how do we keep speaking into our moms? And so it was very interesting because one of the things that we discovered when we were there in March, I had some TCU students there who interviewed a lot of our moms, and the missing link that they discovered was the lack of trust. They didn't have anyone they could trust. So what we did was we started developing small groups. So when they came and got their food packet, they would stay and we would read the Bible. We would ask for prayer from them, and we would be supportive to them.
Wow.
Now, this is this is Muslim mamas. This is Orthodox mamas. This is Protestant mamas. But they all were so hungry to have someone they could trust and someone that they could have community with. So we were able to begin these small groups during COVID that we had never really had the time to do when we were having 110 children there and having all this going on. So that was the first thing that we were able to do. Another thing was something I had been wanting to do for like 3 years, but I'd never been able to do it because I couldn't get visas for some of our staff, was to come in and do what is called TBRI training. And it's out of TCU, and it stands for Trust-Based Relational Intervention. Again, that common word, trust.
Trust.
And many of our moms have never been raised with trust, so they don't know how to extend that to their children. So TCU had to go virtual with this training, which allowed ADERA to say, let's bring it to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. We're not limited by a continent any longer. So we literally did 30 weeks of training with 4 NGOs. We collaborated with 3 other NGOs. We brought everyone together every Monday morning. And we had practitioners from literally Hawaii, Colorado, Florida, Texas, Rwanda, and they would do training on Mondays. And on Thursdays, we would do a Q&A and just start defining, making sure that the word mindfulness is being translated into the correct words in Amharic. So it was a priceless opportunity that allowed us to do a deep dive, which then allowed our core staff to train our caregivers, and our caregivers to train our moms. And they say it has changed their life. It is a new language. It is connection, attachment, and then correction. And they said in their culture, and in many of our cultures, we always begin with correction. And we haven't established the connection and the attachment so that the correction becomes minor compared to the connection and the attachment. So we were able to start that training. And then we were invited, and the school had invited us to come in and begin character training. Well, there's a fantastic character curriculum in the United States, and it was forced to go virtual. And so that allowed us to easily access it in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And it was easily transferable into Amharic because it was all virtual rather than hard copy. And now we are teaching Character Strong in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to the students and to the children in our program. And it was really all because COVID forced people's hands in becoming innovative on thinking outside the box. And so that was a huge blessing for ADERA.
Thank you so much, Julie. I believe you've touched the next question that I had actually, which was what strategy have you implemented to face these challenges? From what you've said, I could already say that I hear and I perceive that you are prepared, you had an emergency preparedness strategy in place, which helped you to be proactive and take things right in control right when it happened. And I believe those new in nonprofit management, this is something that we really need to emphasize on. Prepare in advance for emergency. Have a contingency plan in place. And I tell that you had that in place. And this is a great opportunity for you to do like now a testing of that contingency plan. So I'm just excited to hear that. And again, I could hear that while you were talking, you spoke about community, you spoke about adaptability. You were able to adapt quickly now to your new environment and to the new thing that were happening around you. Moreover, you were able to build the trust-based relational. What is the I standing for?
Intervention.
Intervention.
Right.
And I hope those that are following us will go online to do more research about this, because definitely when you talk about nonprofit, running a nonprofit, those are concepts that you need to be familiar with and the strategy that you need to be really aware of, so that when things happen, you will be able to just undertake what needs to be done in order for you to survive. Again, I heard about you talking about communication a lot. You also spoke about knowledge transfer, training, and finally, I heard about connection, attachment, and then correction. That is powerful. I love that. And I think this really should resonate to me also, even in doing this webinar twice a month. I'm learning a lot, Julie. I'm definitely learning a lot. And thank you so much for that. Do you have any other strategy that you might have not talked about that help you to face this challenge that you faced during the COVID-19?
Well, I think all nonprofits were super challenged with how they would do their fundraising. And we were super challenged with that because we always have a large, probably 300 people come together in the fall and hear the story. And the year before, I had 85% who had never heard about ADERA, which is awesome. Okay, so here I was planning this, and I had this dinner on the calendar, and it was going to happen. And my committee on that said, we are not going to be able to do this. And I said, no, it will be fine in the fall. But it wasn't. And so we had to get super creative. Okay. So I had heard, I think it's so important that we listen to the people on the ground. What is the story that they are telling you? So passingly, my director had said to me, Elias is his name, he had said to me, the onion, a staple, the onion had gone up 407%. Yeah. Because if they close down all transportation and the farmers cannot bring their produce into the city, you have a monopoly on pricing, gouging. Yeah. And so I heard we've gone up 407% on staples, on just the basics. Yeah. So I said, okay, so if we're going to have to go virtual on this, how are we on our fundraiser? Let's send an onion. So what I did was I made cards, almost like recipe cards. And on the front one, I tied a shallot, an onion, a thin onion on the card and said, the food cost because of COVID has gone up 407%. We need you more than ever. And then on each card, I said, one was, would you consider having a dinner in your home? Would you consider underwriting this event that would not be an event, so that all of that would go straight to our budget? Or would you consider doing a video and doing a virtual with some of your friends? And so what I did was I put them in a box, these cards with the onion in it, and put it in the box, and I mailed it to 75 people who have always been involved in the fundraising or been involved with giving, have a real heart for ADERA. Our giving this year was up 47%. And that was just, I think when you make something so visible to them, and my board kept saying, Julie, it's going to stink. The onion is going to stink when you send that. It's going to be hot. I said, I know. Isn't that awesome? I want them to smell it. Like I want it to stink. Okay. Because it engages everything kinesthetically, smell, eyes. They have to do something with it. Instead of just like a flat brochure or a flat invitation or something, they had to encounter this onion, and they had to say, what's with the onion? And so our giving was very gracious this year. It was definitely more within the people who were already giving to ADERA. But that was so sweet to have that. Yes, we're walking with you and we'll do more. And so I just think, I remember listening, Simon Sinek is a favorite of mine. He does Leaders Eat Last, and he was very famous for What is Your Why? And I kept watching he had a book club online during COVID, and he kept saying to us, shame on us if we tried the same thing during this time that we've tried in the past. Shame on us. This is an opportunity for innovation. And then shame on us if we go back after this is over with to do the old stuff we've always done, because we now know that the box is open. I mean, we have the freedom to do many things that we never thought of. And I know people are very tired of Zoom, but it connects us to anyone at any time. And so it has been very gracious of the Lord to allow us to be creative, to allow us to touch people that we never thought we could do. So I want to write the stories of our moms. And so I was able to interview one-on-one with our moms with a translator in the room and record it. So I could totally spend an hour and a half with Itagan and asking her questions, not having to write anything down because I could record it, write it down later. So we could continue eye contact. And I got to put her in a room by herself where she knew that I was trustworthy. And she told me her story that was unbelievably courageous. And if we had not had COVID, I would never have even had that thought to even do that.
I love this, Judy. Wow, wow, wow. I'm taking a lot of notes here. And, the next question was actually the advice that you would give to a new startup women-led nonprofit. And already I was taking notes. Like I said, I could hear thinking out of the box, being innovation, become creative. And just like you've done it, despite all the sadness, the gloomy situation that was in front of you, you were able to look beyond that and see beauty and see the hidden beauty that could come out of it. And this is just amazing. This is amazing. What advice would you give? Let's say, and I know I have a couple of people who are new to the nonprofit world. They just started their organization, and I hope they're taking a lot of notes like I am. What advice would you give them? And also, what pitfall do you think they should avoid in starting a new nonprofit, especially in this COVID-19 era?
Well, the nicest thing about the COVID era for a new nonprofit, it's a great time to pause and plan. You're not in a rush. You can't really implement a true program.
Mm-hmm.
So I know many people get excited and they want to get started and all this. Well, you can't do that right now. So it's an opportunity to plan. I also think that one of the greatest things that I did early on was meet with people who have had a decade of experience or more.
Mm-hmm.
And ask them, what mistake do you wish that you had been told before that you could have avoided? And then what advice would you give me? So I think having mentors and people of experience is priceless. One of those people said to me, Julie, you must read this book called Mission-Based Management. And I did. It's an older book. It's called Mission-Based Management. Mm-hmm. And it's an older book. But what I got from it was, I think the biggest pitfall for an upcoming nonprofit and the strongest element of an upcoming nonprofit is how to establish your board. Mm-hmm. Because your board needs to be people that you are not. If I am not a strategic person, I need a strategic person on my board. If I am not good with Excel spreadsheets and finances, I need a CPA on my board. If I am not good with marketing, I need a marketing person on my board. The worst thing I have seen over and over and over in a nonprofit is they put their brothers and sisters and parents on their board. That is the worst mistake you could possibly make. Also, something that was recommended to me was to have every decade represented on your board. Many young people want to start a nonprofit and they get all their peers on their board. Or people that are 50 to 60 get 50 to 60-year-olds on their board. So I determined early on that every decade would be represented. So presently on ADERA's board, we have a 20 to 30-year-old, a 30 to 40-year-old, a 40 to 50-year-old, a 50 to 60-year-old, a 60 to 70-year-old. So that we understand, how do you approach the 60 to 70-year-old? How do you approach the millennial? How do you approach the 20-year-old? And so that has been super helpful to have that menagerie of voices coming in, that we all know we have limitations. And so we are not supposed to be the whole thing. And so it's important that we surround ourselves with people who are thinking and that have talents that we don't have.
Thank you so much, Julie. And I hope they have taken great note of that. I believe they are blessed because, like you said, you are blessed to have people advising you from the beginning. This is also, again, what is leadership excellence for women, by women about. Bringing someone like you who's already a trailblazer, because you've been doing this now for some years. So to me, you are a trailblazer, and you know the do's and don'ts and the lesson learned that you are able now to share with all of us directly today. So thank you so much for being open with that. Now, you spoke about volunteering also during your giving the advice. How important do you think volunteering is in the success of a new startup nonprofits? And how should they go about it?
I think it's really important. And it's amazing to me who wants to be asked. In other words, I asked a CPA if she would help me to set up the finances. She's been working with me now 10 years. She will not take any money. She wants to serve. She has a job. She wants to serve. And so she has been such a blessing to me as a volunteer to equip me. I also have another woman who is amazing with Excel spreadsheets and loves setting up systems. She set up computer systems for like a decade as a business. And so she has helped me with metrics, designing metrics, with our database. She's totally volunteer. So she has helped me set up accountability and making sure that when you send that invoice out, that it does get paid, that we have a system that goes, that hasn't been paid yet, or, oh, that one was paid. So that I never had a system that way. And so that was super valuable. So, I mean, I'm the only United States employee of ADERA. We run very lean and mean so that we can send the majority of our funding to Ethiopia. We do not need, I was officing at home when officing home was not in. And I mean, we don't have rent. We don't have overhead. We don't have expenses like that. And so that allows us, back to that earlier, to have that proactive funds, because we haven't mismanaged funding in the United States, so that we are prepared for anything that comes toward us in Ethiopia. So the volunteers that I have surrounding, I have another volunteer that fills all of our orders for our jewelry. She's 70 years old. She can run, she drives a tractor. She is so strong. And she said, Julie, I'll do all the orders. So she runs to the office and where the jewelry is, and she'll fill that up. And we do have an office, a place where we keep our jewelry, but that was given to us. So again, I'm not embarrassed to ask, because I know that when I ask, they can see the value that I place on not wasting any money. And people love that. So I think it's important that we ask. And if they say no, it's okay. They're the wrong person, or it's the wrong time.
Yeah.
And so it's okay. Now, ADERA does have the challenge of how to utilize volunteers halfway around the world. And so we are always looking for ways to bring people in to ADERA into the story. And so I am doing a tea party in a couple of weeks. And I got a committee of volunteers of 15 women that have showed an interest in ADERA to help me design, implement this party. It first of all takes the weight off my board, and then it draws new volunteers in who have gifts like, oh my goodness, I'm a party planner. Really? That's awesome. And I didn't even know it. So drawing people into where your needs are and finding out where their sweet spot is a gift to both.
Thank you so much, Julie. I like that because the next thing that I was going to talk about is traditional fundraising strategy. Let's talk about it a little bit. Traditional fundraising strategy and new fundraising strategy that you had to come up with for the past year.
Okay. So right off, like in April of last year, 2020, we needed funding for these food packets, right? We're going to do curbside food packets. Now we had the funds, but remember, we also want to engage the donor, and we also want to engage the volunteers. So I put out a family relief on Facebook and social media, and we send out a mass email saying, we have an opportunity to feed a lot of people with curbside. And we all are benefiting from curbside. It looks a little bit different in Addis Ababa, but when you relate it to something that's happening here, people go, oh, curbside. Oh, I understand that. And so I think using the terminology that is going on presently here to relate to something going over there is super valuable, because I think that oftentimes the relating of something so far away is hard. But when you have a common goal of curbside or quote, safe at home, how do you redefine that or clearly define it to your donors here? And so we did curbside, and we got a sweet response to that. It more than paid for our curbside, which was awesome. And we have just kept in our, like any of our social media, we've kept up to date on teaching with TBRI, having small groups, showing the moms making baskets at home when they were having to be safe at home. And we started making baskets at home. And so we started telling the story in real time of what was happening in Addis Ababa. First of all, I think it put things in perspective here. And then it allowed us to just keep telling the story of what was happening in Ethiopia.
Thank you so much, Julie. We are almost toward the end of our webinar. The last thing that I would like us to discuss is actually your upcoming fundraising event, the Mother-Daughter High Tea event. Could you talk about it and also let those of us who are interested, how they can participate, how they can buy the tickets, and where would the event take place?
Yes, we have never done this event before. I usually have an in-person large gathering in the fall, but when I realized we wouldn't be able to do the fall, I thought, what could we do in the spring to bring people together? But how could we do that maybe in a different fashion? Because it's really more couples in the fall. So I, as a mother of daughters, and my daughters have daughters, I said, how can we do multi-generation of women? Women empowering women, women hearing the story of women, women having a voice for women. And so I said, let's have a tea party. Everybody likes a tea party. And so we contacted a country club here, which I've never done a country club before, but a tea party is very proper for a country club, and they have been overly gracious. And so you could buy tables or you could buy individual tickets, and it is a high tea. But what we're going to do right at the beginning is we're going to have a lady who's going to be more like the Mary Poppins type of person, like proper tea. But we're also going to have an Ethiopian woman who lives here do proper coffee. And they're going to sort of do a dueling. No, that's not how you do it. Oh, no, this is how you do it. No, this is how you do it. So it's going to be really fun, them sort of doing a duel about the Ethiopian coffee and the English tea, you know, or the Western tea. And so that's going to be fun. And then I have a mother-daughter team that went with me to Ethiopia that are going to share why they went and the impact it had on them. And then, of course, I will share about ADERA. And each participant will get a little box, and they will be able to make their own bracelet out of the beads from our moms. So again, I like to do things that are kinesthetically engaging. And so I want them to feel that and to be able to be a part of that. And of course, we'll have our jewelry there to sell. And I'm thrilled to say that we have 38 tables right now. So, so there's 8 at each table. So I was praying for 32, and today we have 38. So it's going to be we're going to give an award to the person who has the most generations present. And I mean, for my family, we will have 4 generations. So we'll see if somebody has 5. I'm not sure if they will. But we want it to be multi-generation. And we also want to include, like I have a whole table of women who have no daughters. It's not like it's limited. You don't have to have a daughter. But we want it to be women who know their own voice and want to be a voice for someone else.
That's awesome, Julie. That is really awesome. This was really an hour of advice, of wisdom, of insight, and of hope more than anything, because we all know when we talk about nonprofit organization, it all starts from a vision, from something just like you having that encounter in Ethiopia, with me having that encounter with this little girl in that poor neighborhood. And I'm sure many of our viewers also have been inspired with what you've shared. Those who already started a nonprofit, those wanted to start one, I hope and I pray that this session has really helped them to have better understanding, and more than anything, to know that it is possible. Even though there is coronavirus, even though everything seems to be dark and gloomy around us, there is still hope. And together as women, just like you talk about multi-generational or power of women coming together, we can do this. And it is not impossible. There is still hope. Thank you so much, Julie, for being with us. Again, Julie is Executive Director of ADERA Foundation that is based here in Texas, but they operate in Ethiopia. And if you want to be in touch with her, please feel free to just send me a note, and I'll be more than happy to connect you with Julie. Thank you so much again, Julie, for your time. And I shall see you at the high tea party.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Look forward to it.
Bye. Have a good afternoon. Bye.